Welcome to Dad Esquire, the podcast for lawyer dads who are navigating the courtroom, the office, and the chaos of fatherhood. I'm your host, Matthew Korn, a practicing attorney and dad of four. At Dad Esquire, we tackle the unique challenges of balancing life as a lawyer dad. From work-life hacks to parenting wins and fails, I'm here to share stories, tips, and tools to help you thrive in both worlds. So grab your coffee, take a break from the billable hours, and let's spend some time focusing on being the best lawyer and dad you can be. It's time to dive in. This is Dad Esquire. Hey, Michael, welcome to the Dad Esquire podcast. And I just want to start off by congratulating you on being our first lawyer dad of the month. Just really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with me tonight and talk a little bit about you being a lawyer and a dad and what that looks like in your life. So I want to let you have a chance to introduce yourself first. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Michael.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. And I guess no lawyer podcast starts unless I say, these are my own thoughts and I'm here on my own volition and don't hold anything I say against my employer. I think we can all appreciate that
Same.
caveat on this podcast, right? Yeah. So Oh man, where did it start? It started I ended up in law school by accident. Didn't realize that's where I was going to go. Ended up with a small firm right out of law school and then moved to a large national firm practicing employment defense, which is where we met. What was it? We were saying 9 years ago? No,
Yeah,
longer than
that's the
that.
last time it was probably a little
That was the
longer
last
when we
time we
started
worked
working
together, but
together.
it would have been about probably 11 years ago then. Um, you went in-house and I went in-house shortly after that, and I've stayed in-house. You've come back to private practice and was it two companies? I started with a technology company doing a lot of technology support. Was there for a couple years, largely doing employment law on a national basis. A little bit of international work there too. And then actually just over 5 years ago, I celebrated 5 years uh, a week ago. Moved to a company called Enviva, and we make wood pellets that are displacing coal, and they're a renewable alternative to coal. So we do that. We ship them to Europe and Asia, and I've moved my way up the ranks. I started as an employment attorney with some other smatterings of responsibility, and now I'm an assistant general counsel. And along with employment, I handle environmental, uh, oversee our small intellectual property profile portfolio, handle safety, a lot of safety because we're a manufacturing company, cyber, and I run our compliance and ethics program as well. So in the past 5 years, taking on a lot of different stuff. I know I'm forgetting something in there, but yeah, those are day to day. Those are the things that come through the door, and then I guess at least my experience is you're not if you're in house, you're touching contracts at some point. So you see I see contracts every day. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had a much shorter in-house career than you have,
Yeah.
but I felt like every day it was just what's coming in the door. It was just something new every day, and I know you've talked a lot about that online too. It's kind of exciting. Like I remember researching is there liability if the food truck in the parking lot gets somebody sick at
Yeah.
work and things like that. Like it's just kind of interesting stuff. So
Oh, it's no 2 days are the same. No 2 days are the same, which is good. You become very comfortable being uncomfortable.
awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah. So let's
Wife,
see.
son.
Yeah. So my wife Lee and I have one son, Patrick. He's 7, and we're actually in the process of trying to adopt. So we're it's a hard process, but we're hopeful that that will work out. And yeah, so that's our family. Lee and I have been together. Let's see, this month we'll celebrate 12 years of marriage, which we're excited about. And then Patrick, as I said, was 7. He's a first grader, full-blown first grader, and very STEM oriented. And that's probably good. He's got our genes, so athletics are fun and they're a good thing to do. But
Good for
yeah, we
teamwork.
oh, exactly. Teamwork and coordination, all that good stuff. But yeah, he's super into STEM. And actually, as we were talking about before we jumped on, was really likes board games too. So we get into
That's
all sorts of
awesome.
good things.
That's awesome. I have and as you know, I have a 7-year-old son too. It's an awesome age. It's such a cool age. They still have that innocence of childhood, but they're starting to get to be able to have real conversations with them and stuff. It's a really, really cool age.
It's I feel like it's the first age where they really become like people, right? Like that's 5 and 6, they're getting there, but I mean, he's got an opinion on something. If we ask him, he's got an opinion, and it's a often well formulated, maybe not always completely informed, but well formulated opinion based on the world he lives in, and it's fantastic.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about adoption. I don't know if you realize but our daughter Madison is adopted, and I'm so super excited in the future to be doing some stuff on adoption. National
Yeah,
Adoptions Month is in November, so we'll be doing a ton of stuff on adoption then. But I think it's awesome.
yeah,
I applaud you, and if there's any way I can help or talk to you about that process, I'm happy to do it. It's as you said, it's an involved process, but it's a
yeah,
really cool experience. So,
yeah, yeah. We'll have to trade notes when we're not recording.
so tell me, just kind of a icebreaker as we get into it. What's one thing about fatherhood that surprised you the most? And then I'll give you time to think about the second one too. How about being a lawyer? What surprised you the most
Yeah.
about being a lawyer? Answer them in any order you want.
Yeah, so it's on the fatherhood part, it's the one thing I tell new fathers, I said that no one tells you about, and you won't realize it until the kids are a little bit older, but it's learning to keep a straight face when you want to laugh so hard because what they've said is so hilarious because kids are just so wonderfully smart in their own ways. And but you're like you can't encourage that behavior because you're trying to teach them something. It's that's probably maybe the most surprising and hardest thing about being a dad is uh, when you have to be the adult in the room. I guess
Yeah.
that's it. When you actually have to be the adult in the room.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was I think that may have been what surprised me the most. Um,
Do you have an example of that? I can think of a few in my life, but do you have any fun examples of that?
uh, I'll just say we were singing our song to sleep one night, and we were singing Jingle Bells. It was around Christmas time, and he had realized, oh God, this was a couple years ago now, and he realized that if you add "but" at the end of the line, like punctuate it with that it's hilarious. I did a terrible job. I laughed. I laughed. I couldn't even keep it together because it was so unexpected that he had figured that out. So yeah, that
It's the
was
joy
that
of
was
having
probably
boys. There's a lot of potty humor in my house.
probably more of that than anything else in ours
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
How about being a lawyer? What surprised you about being a lawyer? You said earlier that you kind of I think you said lucked into law school or
Yeah.
wasn't your
Yeah.
plan. So
No, no, it wasn't at all. It wasn't at all. I went through a variety of things I thought I'd be, which I won't talk about, but um I think it's the breadth of areas that people can practice in, and then also the where people can be experts in something that seems so narrow. And I saw it firsthand in the employment world. I mean, most employment attorneys do a lot of different stuff, but everyone tends to have their area. Like we were talking about, your class collective action, Um, but even outside of that, because I work with so many outside attorneys, it astounds me how deep the law can really get in areas that seem like they should be shallow, and they're just not. So it's for I don't I think every lawyer I've ever met just has this endless desire to learn, and I think that's just really reflective of how deep areas can get. So it's great because there's no lack of learning.
yeah, that's awesome. And like I said, like with the in-house role, you get exposed to
Oh
more
yeah.
different things. So that's great. Um, so you've got a 7-year old. You've got a wife of 12 years, which is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And um, you've got a demanding job. And so tell me a little bit about that. Like, what are the stressors? How are you balancing both roles as being a dad and a lawyer?
Yeah, yeah. So it's I've gone through iterations of trying to balance this, and I think we all do, right? You got to find what works, and then what works sometimes stops working. One of the key things that I think I've found to balance stressors are physical activity. I think like most of us, we probably played played sports in high school and, probably played intramurals in college. And so you kind of had a natural activity there. I know a lot of friends still, play on softball teams, although I found that generally when I was in private practice, particularly, but even now, it's hard to commit to something so regular,
Mm.
because there are those days where you get the phone call and that's that. You're up
Yeah.
at night. There was one time I almost had to 8 o'clock on a Friday drive down to a plant because we had an issue. So physical activity, working out. I just started running again, which I enjoy, but I've always found some time to work out for myself. What I've found actually worked out well is I wake up, have a cup of coffee, clear out a ton of emails for, 35, 40 minutes, an hour. And then mid-morning, I usually try to sneak in a little workout, I work hybrid, so I have that flexibility, but that has helped me. If I've had a rough morning, I go get a workout in, even if it's 15 minutes.
Cool.
That's a balancer, and that's nothing that I came up with, of course. If you read about physical, mental health, you read a lot about physical health as well.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I was going to ask you when you do it because I mean, I found that like if I want to get a workout in, it's at like 5 a.m. Orange Theory or something,
That's right. Yeah.
and because by the time I get home and the kids are, we have dinner and go to bed, I'm beat. And so I was just going to ask you, but that's an awesome idea.
Yeah, yeah. I figure, with the hours that we pull, it's, if I'm up early or I'm working late, I don't feel bad taking 30 minutes to get in a workout
Hmm.
mid-morning or take a walk while I'm on a conference call or something along those lines. I try to work out in the morning if I can, but it doesn't always work out because you get that email that you're like, crap, now I got to respond to this or get working on this so that I'm not behind the eight ball with whatever else comes in that day.
Cool. How about this? I put up a post the other day on the blog about just um, lessons I've learned from my kids that I think are helpful and um, just managing. And obviously I advise on managing employees a lot, but just what lessons do you think, if any, that you've learned from your kid that impact how you approach your work life, how you approach practice of law?
Yeah, it's everyone's got a point of view, right? We were talking, I was just mentioning, and we were sharing, they're little people and they have opinions and actually somewhat, and I hadn't thought about this before we got on, but it's just clicking now. Maybe their opinion is not as well as informed as it could be, and working with that because we see that with clients every day, right? The client comes in with a goal or maybe thinking they know what they want, and so learning how to work with someone who has their opinions and very strong opinions too, and they're not, opinions aren't necessarily wrong, and how to work through that. And I think I would be curious in a year or so after you have these conversations if there's a tally mark, but I'm guessing patience is going to be a top one that dads are going to answer to, how you have patience.
Hmm.
Because again, they're little people. They have their own agendas and you got to work with them. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that.
It is patience is definitely high up on the list, and it's something that I cont continue to work on. But it reminded me of my coffee mug at work that says, "Please don't confuse my law degree with your Google search." Just,
Oh, I know. I
just
know.
reminded me of that. But that's one of the things I value about being a lawyer is helping find, there's a
Mhm.
desired outcome and there's a way to get there. And I think it's the same with our kids, right? That we've got there's something they want to achieve and there's a way to get there and there's a lot of ways to get there and
Mhm.
some of them are better than others. And
Yeah.
so
No, that's right.
it's a really good point that especially as your son gets older. I found now I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old and a 4 and a 2-year-old, but
Mhm.
the older they get, it's like every year, every day, you have these like deeper conversations. They do get a little bit more opinionated. I've said my 7-year-old is going to be a lawyer someday. If he's not a
Mhm.
lawyer, he's wasting his gift. He's always got an immediate response to things. So I understand where you're coming from for sure. What do you think's the biggest challenge you face as a lawyer dad or faced over the years? And maybe it's not in your current role, but in any role. Or maybe a different age group for your son. What was the most challenging year for your son?
Yeah, most
What you're
challenging.
balancing.
Yeah, everyone says it's the terrible twos. Three was rough. Three was, I don't know what was going on with three. Somewhat the three-nager is what we heard, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. Three was a rough year. Just a lot of, I assume it was a lot of growth. It was a lot of challenge. It was still during the middle of the pandemic, so that was tough with social distancing. Um, I, I don't know that it would correspond necessarily with a hard year at work. But yeah, there's been periods of tough times. We actually, when I first joined this company, we were going through a period of booming, and I mean, I felt like I was back in private practice with the hours. I mean, the hours aren't 40 hours a week, but they also weren't necessarily what private practice can be. And it was rough. That's tough with a small kid where, you're tired, you put him down, you come upstairs, you got to crank out another couple hours of work, and sometimes that's just what it takes. So yeah, there's been periods there, but nothing really comes out of nothing comes to mind where they were in lockstep, which I think has helped because then you're not dealing with both at the same time.
Yeah. That's good. I love that you said that about the three-nagers because I literally just I was with a group of three other dads this morning having breakfast, and one of them has a 2-year-old, and he's like, "Tell me about this twos," and I was like, "Twos just prepare you for three."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I have come to believe. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
uh,
No, they've all been good. Three was a little rough. Seven has been wonderful.
yeah.
He's about not quite 7.5. So six was
Well, the
great.
independence that hopefully he's a little bit more independent. He
Oh
can
yeah.
do some more things for himself. That's a huge benefit too. We're hopefully about 6 months out of being out of diapers, and after 10 plus years of being in
You're gonna
diapers,
get a raise is what you're gonna get.
I'm yeah, very excited about that. But that
Yeah.
independence you get when they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old
Yeah.
is nice.
Oh yeah. And heartbreaking at the same time because they don't ask you for the same things they did that you say, that we always think about it. My wife and I talk about it that there's always going to be the last time, right? And you don't know it's the last time. We had a
Hmm.
special part of our bedtime routine where we would I don't even know how to describe it, but we had this moment together and then it just stopped and it wasn't intentional. And so yeah, so it's wonderful to see him grow up, but it's also, heartbreaking when things just stop. And yeah, it's such a push and pull.
Totally get that. My wife's got a video of my 10-year-old MJ when he was, I don't know, 3 or 4, 5 years old maybe, and she has a video of him and she says, "MJ, are you always going to want to snuggle mommy and give me hugs and kisses?" And, "Oh yes, mommy, absolutely." And she's like, "I'm saving this video for when he's like 18." And I was like, "Good luck."
Patrick told me at one point I was fixing the sink and I said, Patrick, he said, how do you know to do this? And I said, well, Bubby, my dad, taught me how to do this, and he told me so that one day when I have a house, I would know how to fix it. And I said, and that's why I'm teaching you. And he said, I don't need to know that. And he was probably about 5. And I said, well, why? He said, I'm going to live with you and mommy forever. And I said, and everyone who's listening to this will appreciate it. I said, okay, how do I get a 5-year-old who signs a contract to be binding, right? Like where, how do I get that bound, locked, sealed, and delivered so that he can't move out? But
Well, we're gonna interview you again when he's like 18 and then see if you still feel the same
that's
way.
a good point. That's a
You're
good
gonna need
point.
it, but contracts are meant to be broken, right?
That's
So
right.
there's gonna be some kind of escape clause for you there.
There's got to be.
Um, let's do some fun stuff. Just
Yeah.
what's one of your proudest moments as a dad? Brag on yourself a little bit. You're Lawyer Dad of the Month after all, so brag
Yeah,
on
well, no, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm honored. Um, I think it's just seeing him continuing to put his interest first. I think, there are so many times where I'm just like, this isn't what I want to do, but it's what he's interested in. And it's amazing to just see how he responds when he's in control, right? When he gets to decide. And so I think it's just catching that moment where you could say no and you say yes. And it does wonders for the relationship. So Yeah, I think that's got to be it. I don't have anything in particular other than to say that I try really hard to say yes to anything he wants to do and not redirect it to something I'd rather do.
That's really cool because that is tough sometimes. So
It, especially when it's the same thing over and over, you know.
yeah, have you guys watched Yes Day the movie yet?
No, I know the movie you're talking about, but we haven't watched it.
You need well maybe don't because my kids my, maybe you and your wife watch it first and see. It's a
Give him some
great
ideas.
movie, but my kids
Yeah.
have been advocating for a Yes Day since seeing it. So
Oh, geez. Yeah.
um,
Maybe we'll hold off
it
on
is a fun one. I think your son would enjoy it too. My
it.
7-year-old he loves that movie. So but that reminded me of that to just
Yeah.
saying yes and sometimes I've often said like I didn't realize how selfish I was till I got married, and then I didn't realize how selfish I was until I had kids. And
Yeah.
it's putting their interests or their wishes above your own. Well, I'd rather be watching the football game or doing something
Yep.
else if he wants to play a board game at that point. Like
Hmm.
that's important. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
awesome. Um, what lesson has your son taught you that you surprised you?
Oh, man. I think I've got to go back to that they're independent thinkers, right? You know, that they have their own thoughts, their own opinions, and we all live together, and I would think that I'd know his answer, and he surprises me. So, yeah, it's just to be ready because you just can't, as much as you think you can predict someone, you can't. Not always, anyway.
Yeah, for sure. With kids, like there was like a TV show. The kids say the darndest things, but
Oh
like
yeah.
they do. They say things that crack you up and
Oh, it's
make you think.
amazing.
And I heard you talk about a bedtime routine, but like, give us some practical advice here. Like, what's a parenting strategy or a dad life hack that works for you and your family?
Yeah, yeah. So I got to turn. I'm sure someone's going to recognize the name Jesse Itzler, and he's started a private jet company. He was a rapper for a while. He's done a lot of things, and I can't remember her name, but he's married to Sarah, who totally blanking on her, but she started Spanx, right? Like they're this power couple. Anyway, and I saw this interview with him, and he said he has a family rule, or he has a personal rule, and I think he's got 5 kids, and he said, "I'm never too tired for my kids." And I heard that, and this was a few years ago that I heard it, and I was like, okay, that really resonated with me. And so, kind of one of my hacks is to try to just keep that in mind. It's along the same idea of trying to remember to say yes to the things he's interested in, which is I chose to be a lawyer and I chose to be in a demanding position and a demanding job. And it's not fair to take that out and not have something left in the gas tank, as hard as it can be, not have something left in the gas tank for Patrick when he asks for me. And so I always, no matter how tired, and maybe it's only 5 minutes worth of time that I can muster up at the end of that day. But I always try to make sure that when he asks for something that, attention, play this game with me or pretend this thing with me or look at this book with me, whatever it is, that I try to always be able to say yes. And I'm not perfect at it, not by a long stretch, but as much as possible that just reminds me of, I brought him here. He didn't bring me here. So I need to give it my all. Not to mention, I don't have much time with him. I mean,
Yeah.
you're counting the days now. I mean, MJ's closer to getting out of the house than he was to staying in it. So, days are limited and numbered. But that's one, and the other is um, because we tend to be running so hectic now, and everyone talks about how fast paced everything is, and now I'd actually like seeing these trends where people are trying to slow the pace down. But I try to pick little moments for us that happen every day. And one of them is I put a daily doodle in his lunchbox. I just take a little note card and draw a silly little picture of some sort. And sometimes I ask him, sometimes I don't. But I try to do that every morning. And I think I have done it every morning that he goes to school, just
That's
so that
awesome.
there's something there. It's just a touch point that he can rely on and be consistent with. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. I do something similar. I write like a little encouraging note on a post-it and throw it in their lunch
Yeah.
boxes, and it is. I think they love it. Like that. It's just. and it gives them that moment in the day that they know that, your dad cares about you.
Yeah.
And so that's a really, really good one. I like that a lot. Um, what you touched on something. I want to. I've got some questions here that I didn't give you in advance that are just kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
rapid fire, quick answers, but I want to kind of get your
Sure.
just off the cuff response to. I promise none of them are too. No, none of them are embarrassing, but um,
We'll see. We'll see. I don't know.
what
I
is
might make it embarrassing with my answer.
what's your favorite family tradition?
Oh, wow, that's a good one. So we've got an annual one and a weekly one, and I'll give you both. The weekly one is Daddy Diner, and this just totally started organically. Just a couple Sunday mornings in a row, I started making breakfast on Sunday morning, and it's just continued. And sometimes it's elaborate. Most of the times, it's just a time where we don't do anything and we make some coffee, and my wife and I drink coffee, not my son, and I make breakfast on Sunday morning. And we just call it Daddy Diner. We even have a little diner bell that we ring to
What's
open
your
and close.
specialty?
It's funny. Breakfast is the one thing I don't cook all that well. I mean, I can do omelets and stuff, but the pancakes seem to be a real popular one. So yeah,
Awesome.
or believe it or not, avocado toast. My son is a millennial child. He can down some avocado. I mean,
That's
we
great.
don't go to Chipotle or a whole lot because of the added guac. We cost us a fortune in added guac. So that's one. That's our weekly. That's our weekly. Our annual is we do an annual Christmas tree trip, which happened totally by accident. Where we went one year during COVID, and the next year he asked if we were going back, and we just kept going. So now I think it was our fifth year this year. So it's
Now, do you
yeah.
chop it down? Do you like you?
We did this year. He said he wanted to cut it down ourselves this year. So we got like the dulled hacksaw that they gave us and we got underneath the tree and yeah, we cut it down. It wasn't too bad, but I think
I
he was
have
imagining more like a chainsaw or like swinging an axe like Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, I have fond memory. I grew up in upstate New York, and
Yeah.
so I have fond memories of my dad like down in 2 feet of snow trying to saw a Christmas tree down with the
We were
same
in Western
dull,
North Carolina. We didn't have
same,
2 feet of snow, but I can imagine. Yeah.
yeah, same dull saw you were using. We do the same. We go out and we get a Christmas tree. I have to have a Fraser fir. That the trees that I could cut down here in South Carolina are, to me, not Christmas trees. I have to have the real smelling tree. Every year my wife's like, "Can we just get a fake tree this year?" And I love the real
Yeah,
tree.
it's like the most expensive Christmas tree ever because we have to, get an Airbnb and drive, but we do it the weekend after Thanksgiving. So not like
Awesome.
that Thursday, Friday of the Thanksgiving, but the first weekend after. We go up on Friday. And then I also make something called Christmas tree stew, which is like this stew recipe I have that we make the Saturday after we come back because it's usually cold and yeah, it's great and it's totally developed organically. We didn't plan it. It just happened that we went so many years in a row. And now if we don't, we'll probably get chastised.
Um, so you said breakfast is the one thing you don't cook well. So my next question you've anticipated, which is, what is your go-to dinner after a long day at work?
Ooh, oh yeah, Daddy Greek chicken. Yep. And
Okay.
it's chicken breast. I like chicken thighs because they're juicier, they taste
Yes.
better. And I just season them up and then I've got this real heavy, like flat press, and I just press it onto some cast iron some Kalamata olives, feta cheese, throw in tzatziki sauce, and man, Patrick just devours it. We found this totally by accident, and the kid can't get enough. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. Do you use
Daddy Greek chicken.
Cavender's or use some other kind of Greek seasoning? Make
No,
your
I,
own
I
seasoning.
do actually. It's really simple. It's I don't mind sharing my recipe. It's
I was gonna say we're gonna
garlic
put in the
powder.
notes. The show
Yeah,
notes are gonna have your recipe for Daddy Greek chicken.
it's garlic powder. Believe it or not, Italian seasoning. It's
Yeah.
like the Italian herbs. It's I don't know,
Hmm.
rosemary, basil,
Time.
parsley,
Yeah.
something. Salt, pepper, and then some olive oil. If I'm getting
Okay.
really fun, maybe I'll throw a little cayenne in there. But yep,
I
and
put
you just
Italian seasoning. That's my secret in my chili too. Italian
is it?
seasoning goes well in everything.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think so. That's awesome. All right. So, what is a kid show or movie that you secretly and now not so secretly enjoy?
Um, oh man, what have we gotten into? Camp Cretaceous was pretty good. We watched that. That was the Jurassic Park kids. That was pretty good. I gotta say, I was a big fan of Moana. We haven't seen Moana 2 yet, and which at the time that we're recording this for future listeners, I'm like woefully behind. It's been out for far too long. But yeah, the music in that was really
Yeah.
good. Yeah, the music in that one in Moana was really good. So
We
yeah, that's
listened to it
probably
on the way to preschool almost daily. And
yeah.
now I haven't seen Moana 2 yet either, but I've heard the soundtrack numerous times.
And if nothing else, what can I say except you're welcome is such a useful phrase in dad world that, it just my son's heard me sing it too many times. Poorly, because I can't sing, but yeah.
I have this vision of myself doing social media posts where I'm singing with the kids in the car and I'm like I told my wife I said I'm lip syncing because there's nobody that wants to hear that except for my kids. But I love that you're doing that too. That's awesome. All right, what's one word your kids would use to describe you or your child?
Oh, what would he call? Oh man. What would he use to describe me? I don't know. He probably would say fishing, actually, even though that doesn't describe me, because I've really gotten into fly fishing, and he's interested in it. He's not quite old enough to do it yet because of the coordination, but yeah,
Sure.
yeah, that probably is what he would say.
Fishing. Awesome.
Then I have to go back and explain what an adjective is, but yeah, that's probably what he'd say.
We talked about they have their own ideas. That's if
Yeah,
that's the word that he associates with you, then that's great.
yeah,
Um, and that'll be a cool activity to do with him someday too when he's old
oh
enough.
yeah.
All right, and the last one is, and I think you said you have a colleague who's got a new baby, but what's one if you could give one piece of advice, unsolicited advice to new lawyer dads, what would it be?
Ooh,
Everybody loves unsolicited advice.
yeah, no, no, and we're lawyers. We love to give it. So
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right.
like it's often solicited, but it's the unsolicited we love the most. Man, wow. I'm kind of between two things. Um, I think I'd break it down this way. There's two. One is to think about where you are in your career when you're having your kids, and just what that's going to be like. For a lot, that's still climbing the ladder or pushing hard, and just understanding what that next step looks like before you commit to it, because you don't move up with less work. Um, I think the other one is understanding, and it took me a long time in my career to understand this, but to understand the difference between quality and quantity in work-life balance. You rarely, in my opinion, can have both at the levels that you want. And so, um, I think a lot of lawyers opt for a higher quality of time with those they love at the sacrifice of maybe less quantity. And everyone has to make their own decisions. And across the legal spectrum, there's, all sorts of stuff, right? There's all sorts of balances. But I think it's to really understand what that quality, quantity, work-life balance is like, and how you're going to spend that time with your kids
That's awesome.
and spouse or partner.
Yeah, that's good advice. That is great advice. Well, Michael, thank you so much again for doing this and had a lot of fun chatting with you about and just catching up with you because it's been a while. And so I really appreciate it. I look forward to interacting with you on the community and we've got some new lawyer dads, we've got some lawyer granddads on our community now. So all walks of life. And I've always thought, having people that are ahead of you at the same spot as you are and behind you is great because you've got all three. You get some wisdom and you can pass along some stuff too. So,
Yeah,
but
well,
I really appreciate you being here and thank you very much. And I'm excited to see where your career goes next. I mean, you've made some awesome strides and moves up the ladder since you've left working with me. So it's great.
yeah. Well, Matt, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. I'm honored to be the first, and yeah, I can't wait to see where the community goes and how it grows, and talking with others about it. It's as we were talking about, it's a unique place to be a dad and a lawyer, and there's unique struggles there, and challenges and successes that we champion. So yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I've had a lot of fun.
Good. Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for tuning in to Dad Esquire. If you found value in today's episode, leave a review and share it with other lawyer dads who could use a little extra support. For more tips, stories, and community, subscribe to our podcast and visit www.dadesq.com. If you're a lawyer dad who wants to join the community, submit your request to join today at www.dadesq.mn.co. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and on Instagram at dad_Esquire for even more updates and, of course, some lawyer dad jokes. Until next time, keep crushing it at work and home. You've got this, lawyer dad.